A year into my marriage, life seemed steady until an unexpected storm disrupted our calm. My husband, Merrick, abruptly announced that I would need to take care of my father-in-law, who had suffered a severe accident and was now incapacitated. It was my first encounter with such a situation, and I found myself overwhelmed. To my shock, Merrick and my mother-in-law decided to take a vacation to Hawaii, leaving me behind to care for his father. They had no idea their decision would lead to an unforeseen tragedy. My name is Marigold, and I'm 32 years old. I've always loved cooking, which led me to work for a major restaurant chain after graduating from college. For the past 8 years, I've been part of the planning department, developing new menu items. It was during this time that I met Merrick, the man who would become my husband. 2 years ago, after a long day at work, I visited my favorite Japanese pub, a cozy spot I frequented for relaxation. That evening, I sat at the counter, and Merrick happened to be seated next to me. Thanks to the friendly pub owner, we struck up a conversation and discovered we were the same age. We clicked instantly, exchanged contact information, and soon, Merrick began inviting me out for dinner. As we spent more time together, I was drawn to his cheerful, easygoing nature, and it wasn't long before we started dating. After a year, we fell in love and tied the knot 6 months ago. We now live in a cozy apartment conveniently located between our workplaces. With both of us working, I sometimes let house chores slide, but Merrick always reassures me with a smile. You don't have to be perfect at everything. I'm just happy being with you. His sweet and understanding nature makes me feel so fortunate to be his wife. Our life together has been filled with love and laughter, and even 6 months into our marriage, we still share heartwarming moments. I truly believed our happiness would last for years to come. Then, one day, everything changed. I came home from work expecting Merrick's usual cheerful greeting, but instead, I was met with an unsettling silence. Merrick sat in the living room, his gaze fixed on his phone, worry etched across his face. My heart sank as I approached him, sensing something was wrong. "Merrick, are you okay?" I asked, anxiety creeping into my voice. He barely looked up, his voice heavy with dread. "It's my mom. She called. Dad had an accident." The news hit me like a punch to the gut. I could hardly process what he was saying, but I knew we needed to act quickly. I grabbed Merrick's hand, urging him, "We need to go see him right now." But he shook his head. "We can't go yet." "Why not? Is he not doing well?" I asked, fear creeping into my voice. "He's not, but Mom's with him. She'll stay by his side until he gets better." His quiet response only deepened my anxiety. I released his hand and sank into the couch, feeling utterly helpless. Merrick's father, who had just turned 67, had always been in great health, spending his weekends hiking and golfing. The thought of him lying in a hospital bed felt surreal. A week later, we finally visited him. My father-in-law lay in bed, a weak smile barely visible on his face. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to mask my concern. He scratched his head and offered me an apologetic look. "Marigold, I'm sorry for worrying you." "Don't be sorry. I'm just relieved you're safe," I reassured him. He nodded slowly. "I'm all right. Just need some time to recover." Though his faint smile brought me some relief, the reality was grim. The accident had left him with a spinal cord injury. He could speak, but he was paralyzed. The doctors explained it would take at least 2 months of rehabilitation to assess his condition. Even after leaving the hospital, he would require ongoing care. During this time, Merrick stepped into his father's role as company president, at least temporarily. Watching him take on such a significant position was strange, but he handled it well, though the stress clearly weighed on him. One day, as we sat in the hospital room, my mother-in-law pulled me aside, her tone sharp and condescending. "Marigold, She began. Don't get any ideas. Just because Merrick's the president now doesn't mean you can start enjoying yourself at his expense. Her accusation stung. I have my own job and I'm doing just fine, I replied firmly. She gave me a smug look. Sure, but you knew who Merrick was before you married him, didn't you? You're quite the opportunist. Her insinuation was clear, and this wasn't the first time she had made such remarks. She seemed to believe I had married Merrick for his family's wealth and status, though I had no idea about his background when we first met. Her hostility had lingered from the beginning, but this time, I couldn't hold back. I didn't marry him for his money, I snapped. Merrick's personality is what drew me to him, not his bank account. But her gaze remained icy. Exactly, and no matter what you say or do, I will never approve of you, she replied with a smirk. My father-in-law, sensing the rising tension, asked, Is everything all right? It's nothing, she said quickly, glaring at me before turning away. It was painfully clear my mother-in-law adored Merrick and thought I wasn't good enough for him. Her words lingered, adding weight to an already challenging situation, and I couldn't help but wonder if I'd ever escape her judgment. I met her for the first time at our wedding, and from the start, she was dismissive and curt toward me. I had hoped her sarcasm and hostility would fade, but they persisted. What troubled me even more was Merrick's unwavering devotion to her. A few days after my father-in-law's accident, Merrick delivered another surprise. Marigold, you know Dad will be released from the hospital in 2 months, right? Yeah, why? I asked, wary of what was coming. Well, he began casually, when that happens, we're moving in with my parents. What? Where is this coming from? I gasped, caught off guard. Mom suggested it, he explained as though it were the most reasonable plan in the world. She said it'd be the perfect time for us to move in together. She can't take care of Dad by herself. We can't just decide something like this so suddenly, I protested, trying to reason with him. What are you talking about? We're all in this together. Mom's really grateful, Merrick said dismissively, brushing off my concerns. It became clear that he and his mother had already made the decision without me. My feelings on the matter didn't seem to count. Whenever I tried to revisit the subject, Merrick shut me down. Worse, his attitude toward me became increasingly critical. How's the packing going? He demanded one evening. I won't be able to take time off for the move, so you'll have to handle it all. Oh, and you'll be in charge of the housework and taking care of Dad. Don't let Mom down. His words left me drained. At work, I was swamped with deadlines during the company's busiest season, and now I was also tasked with managing the move. I felt like I was drowning in stress. 2 months later, we moved into his parents' house, and my father-in-law was discharged. There was no time to adjust. I immediately stepped into the role of caregiver, my days starting at 3 a.m., preparing breakfast, doing laundry, helping my father-in-law with massages, dressing him, and feeding him before rushing off to work became my daily routine. Despite my efforts, my mother-in-law was never satisfied. Each morning, just as I was about to leave for work, she would stop me. Marigold, can I have a word? Sorry, I'm running late, I'd say, trying to escape. What's your rush? Sit down. I need to talk to you about breakfast. It wasn't good enough today, she'd insist, her tone laced with disapproval. I'll fix it when I get back, I'd reply desperately, only for her to raise her voice. No, sit down now, she'd demand, leaving my heart racing and my head pounding. These confrontations began to take a toll on me. Panic attacks became a regular occurrence, and I struggled to keep up at work. My coworkers noticed my stress, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. 3 months passed, and I was worn down by the endless cycle of caregiving and criticism. Even dinner became a battleground. "What is this, Marigold?" Merrick would snap. "I come home exhausted, and you serve fish? Really?" "I'm sorry," I'd mutter. "I had to leave the kitchen to help your father, so I made something quick." "You should be making something that boosts my energy. I don't want boiled fish," he'd retort before grabbing instant noodles. My mother-in-law would watch silently, a smug smile playing on her lips, savoring my defeat. One evening, as I helped my father-in-law prepare for bed, he noticed my pale face. "Marigold, are you okay? You don't look well," he asked gently. "I'm fine," I lied with a forced smile, "just a little stressed with work." "Is that really it? I've heard a lot of yelling lately. Is everything all right?" "It's nothing," I reassured him, trying to protect him from the truth. Deep down, I longed to escape, but I couldn't abandon him. The thought of leaving haunted me, yet I saw no way out. As the year drew to a close, I finally had time off work, but there was no relief. On New Year's Eve, Merrick delivered yet another shock. "Mom and I are heading to Hawaii," he announced while packing his bags. "Hawaii? Now?" I asked, stunned. "Yeah, we've been planning this for a while," he replied nonchalantly. "What about your father? How can you leave him like this?" I protested. "He's fine with you being here," Merrick said with a dismissive shrug. "You're off work, so you might as well do something productive." With smug expressions, he and his mother left, suitcases in tow. Their laughter as they walked out the door felt like a knife twisting in my chest. In that moment, something inside me broke. Why was I left to shoulder everything alone? Enough was enough. I resolved that the moment they returned from Hawaii, I would file for divorce. I was done being treated like a servant. Until they returned from Hawaii, I decided to dedicate myself entirely to caring for my father-in-law, letting all other housework slide. The next morning, I brought him breakfast as usual and entered his room with a towel to help him freshen up. "Marigold, best wishes for the new year," he greeted me with a smile. "Happy New Year to you too, Dad," I replied, though my cheerfulness felt forced, still reeling from the events of the previous night. "Where did Merrick and your mother-in-law go? They seemed to be in a hurry," he asked, puzzled. "They went to Hawaii," I said lightly, watching his expression shift. He let out a deep sigh, shaking his head. "Hawaii? Really?" he muttered, looking skeptical. Then his mood changed as he gave me a curious smile. "Marigold, I've been meaning to talk to you. I owe you an apology," he began, his tone calm yet serious. "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. He revealed that he had been able to get out of bed on his own for a few days but had kept it to himself, wanting to observe the situation. Slowly, he shared everything. He had noticed how I was being mistreated and how Merrick and my mother-in-law ignored his needs while dumping all responsibilities on me. I asked them for help with small tasks, but they refused. He explained, they didn't care about anything but themselves. He went on to tell me about complaints he had received from the company's executive director. Apparently, Merrick had been slacking off as acting president, and his trip to Hawaii, suspected to be funded with company money, was the final straw. A representative had been tasked with monitoring Merrick's actions, and his incompetence had been fully exposed, damaging the company. "As soon as I get back, I'll return as president," my father-in-law declared firmly. "And Merrick? He's fired. He's unfit for the role." Then he dropped another bombshell. "While Merrick and your mother-in-law are away, we're changing the locks on the house. They won't be coming back here." I was stunned but felt a wave of relief. Things were finally falling into place. A week later, the doorbell rang. I saw Merrick and my mother-in-law on the monitor, frantically trying to get inside. The intercom buzzed incessantly. I picked it up and greeted them calmly. "How was your trip?" I asked, feigning cheerfulness. "Marigold, open the door," Merrick demanded, his tone frantic. "I can't do that," I replied coolly. "Your father told me not to." "What are you talking about? Open the door already," he pleaded. "Oh, by the way," I added, "I heard your trip was paid for with company funds. Care to explain that?" His voice faltered. How did you know about that?" I could see their shocked faces on the monitor, and I struggled to hold back my laughter. Just then, my father-in-law joined the conversation, his voice firm and commanding. "So you really did embezzle company money, didn't you?" Merrick was taken aback. "Dad, how are you standing?" "I've been able to stand for days now, thanks to Marigold helping with my rehab," he replied, "and I know all about your behavior at work. Thanks to the managing director, you've been lazy and irresponsible." "Dad, no, that's not true," Merrick stammered, panic rising. "Enough," my father-in-law cut him off. "You're fired. Pack up your things and leave the office immediately, and you're not coming back here." Merrick's face crumpled as he pleaded through the monitor. "Marigold, please, you won't leave me, will you?" I finally let my emotions spill out. "What are you talking about? Do you have any idea what you've put me through? You and your mother treated me like a servant, forcing me to care for your father while you did nothing. Do you even realize how much I've suffered?" "Calm down, Marigold. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry," he cried. "Your apology means nothing," I replied coldly. "When you left for Hawaii, I realized there was no point in continuing this marriage. I don't want anything more to do with you. I'm done." Merrick stood there, dazed, while his mother rushed to support him. It was a pitiful sight, mother and son united in defeat. My father-in-law handed Merrick the divorce papers I had prepared earlier. "Sign these now," he ordered. With no other choice, Merrick and his mother signed the papers. I locked the door behind them, ignoring their pleas as they pounded and begged to be let back in.